I'm glad to get the opportunity. Taoiseach, as you know, I travel nearly every road in Kerry on a consistent basis, and one of the roads I travel very often is the road from Kinmare through Kilgarvan down to Clonkeen and Glenflesk and into Killarney. But I can count in my head here without going along the road that there are 55 houses vacant from the top of the town in Kinmare down to the Kerry Way in the Corridglass townland. And there are 55, that's without going up or down any of the by roads, hardly off of that. A short distance, maybe walking distance. And there is public transport, we'll say a certain amount of it, on this road. The question is, why are these houses vacant? Can we do anything? We must explore every avenue that we can when we hear about a housing crisis and people finishing up without a home. Surely we should be doing more to kind of entice the owners of these houses into the rental market. We certainly know that the tax at 52 or 56% is keeping a lot of them out of that market. The other thing is, in this area, they won't get the big rent or command the big rent. If they do rent, they'll only get 600 or 700 euros a month, and paying that tax, then they're left with maybe 300 euros and pay all the bills out of that. So in the private rental market, the other thing is complete confidence is gone, and they're afraid that they will lose their house and that they can't get it back when they want to get it back. And they have the right to do that. I'm asking, can he do anything to relax the RTB, because their rules are too stringent and too restrictive and people can't get into the market? And I'm also asking that he do something for the people that find themselves without a home and can't find a house to rent, that are not on the housing list. We certainly must help the people that are on the housing list, but the people that are not, they need a house, God damn it, as good as the rest of the people, and they can't afford to buy houses, and yet they're just a bit above the threshold to get on the housing list. So I'm asking, and could we involve the local authorities in renting the houses? Maybe that the local authorities could succeed in renting these houses, because people are genuinely afraid that they won't get it back from if they go private. The other thing I'm asking you, Minister, is you were able to offer 800 tax-free to household or house owners that would accommodate the Ukrainians. Why can't we offer this sum to accommodate our own people? Surely our own people are first and foremost. We have no blame to the Ukrainians and their misfortunes, what happened to them. But our own people must be seen after, and this is one of the areas I'm asking to explore. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Deputy. There are a lot of vacant homes around the country. You see them on your travels. I see them on my travels around the country as well. And that's particularly the case in more rural areas, like South Kerry, for example. And our colleague Deputy Griffin has documented this, has photographed this, has done a whole dossier on it, and has shared it with me. And I know you're essentially making the same point. What can be done, certainly where it's a habitable home, and actually the numbers that are habitable is relatively low, but they do exist. And in relation to the habitable ones, the ones that are livable in, the vacant property tax will apply, and will apply from this year. For those that aren't habitable, that are derelict, that need a bit of work before somebody can live in them, we have now the Croí Cónaithe Fund. We've just announced that that's going to be extended, not just for people who will do up the building and live in it, but also people who will do up the building and rent it out. And hopefully that can make a big difference over the next couple of months, or at least the next year or so. There's a fund for local authorities to CPO derelict properties, bring them back into use. Some local authorities are better at doing that than others, but that fund exists. There's also the repair and lease scheme, which you'll be familiar with as well. And we're really calling on local authorities in particular to take a lead on this. You know, some local authorities like Waterford are particularly good, others aren't so good. And every local authority now has funding for a full-time derelict homes officer whose job is to lead this, essentially. And I think for some counties, big counties like Cork, Maybe counties like Kerry, where there are a lot of derelict properties, they might need more than one. This might be a job for more than one person, and we're setting up a section within the Department of Housing dedicated to the whole issue of vacancy and vacant homes. We are going to examine the issue on tax, Deputy. We have committed to that, the whole position of how we tax small landlords, and we're going to get that work done as soon as we can, with a view to making changes in the next budget. What I would say, just in relation to Ukrainians who are accommodated, it is the case that people receive €800 tax-free to accommodate a Ukrainian in a holiday home, for example, but they're not permitted to charge any more than that. So I think that does need to bear in mind. There is a tax relief. It's €800 tax-free, but you can't charge more than 800, and I think it's important to bear that in mind in the discussion.
Deputy Healy-Rae.
But you can't charge anything.
In relation to the 800, if the local authority was to rent it from the householder or the house owner, and if the tenant, if the tenant is able, they should pay according to their means, whatever their income is or whatever their circumstances are. I object in the strongest way to your proposal that houses should be CPO'd. Rather, you should talk to the owners and try to find out, see, would they be interested or what is their problem, and try to deal with that. Certainly don't go down the road of CPO, because you'll turn every landowner and the house owner against you, and that's what they're afraid of, what was happening here today, because if we ban them of getting their house back, it's very much the same thing. It's just an extension to go down the CPO route. So I don't want that. But there is an awful lot that we can do all together, and that is to explore why these houses are vacant. And besides that road, all the other roads over up Rathmore, Scotland, Guinea, Brasna, Knocknagoshel, there's houses vacant everywhere, and there should be no one homeless. And we were able to help people that came into the country from the war with transport and everything. That could be organised as well. But we do need to do more, because the state won't ever be able to build enough new houses. So it's a plus.
Time, Deputy, please.
It is a plus, Corley, that we have these houses. That's the first thing. It's a big bonus. It's a big start.
Good.
Thanks, David. Just to say, I don't ever think that a CPO should be the first option, ever. But it should be an option that we have if people refuse to sell or refuse to bring a property into use and just sit on a derelict property for years and years and years. And that's why we have the fund to do that. And some local authorities have led the way on that. Others have been far too slow. But the whole issue of vacant properties is a very interesting one. The government published a really good vacant home strategy on this not too long ago. Points out that there are roughly 160,000 vacant properties, vacant homes in the state. But as is always the case, it's much more complicated when you dig into it. And a huge number of those, in fact the vast majority of those, were either for sale, to let, being renovated. The person who owned it had died recently. The person who owns it is in hospital or a nursing home. Or the person who owns it can't be traced. And actually, when you take that number of 160 down, it's a much smaller number. But there are still thousands of homes that are vacant that could be brought back into use. And I've set out the measures that we're taking to make that happen.
Thank you.